Hello and welcome to the Godot community. I am Jody Ann Henry and I am the Middle School Theater PLC moderator. I will be discussing with you some of my favorite end of the year or end of the semester projects that I enjoy teaching and my students enjoy working on. These projects allow my students to apply a lot of the performance, the writing skill, and scene development skills that they have learned throughout the school year or the semester. Some of the main standards that several of these projects address that I will be sharing with you today. They address playwriting, so the students are able to develop skills through theatrical techniques. They create ideas for the stories. They use the dramatic writing process to generate the script, and they also utilize dramatic conventions in the script writing process, such as stage writing, the use of dialogue and scenes, and they learn how to format a script. They learn the difference between a full length play, a one act play, and a 10-minute play. They also learn how to use nonverbal and verbal communication skills in a performance. They learn how to adjust the pitch and the volume and the use of inflection and the use of posture and facial expression and movement to create a character in a performance. I challenge them to make these adjustments to create different characters for different performance. Also, they learn how to compare and contrast theater with other art forms. So these are the three primary standards that each of these projects that I'm about to share with you address. So one of my favorite projects to work on with, especially my sixth graders or my seventh grade students, is a puppet show project. They write a script for a two puppet scene. They create the puppets from materials at home. They create the backdrops, they record the performance, and they post a video of it on Flipgrid. The students, of course, they're playing all the characters within the puppet show, so I challenge them on how they can adjust the rate in which they speak, the pitch, the inflection, possibly having one character have an accent, so how they can use their voice to show emotion and expression, and how they can differentiate that for each of the character that they are portraying. Here are some pictures of the students during creation of the puppets. So you can see there's a student here, he's using computer paper to create the crown for one of the characters. He's actually making a sock puppet. We have the googly eyes for the eyes of the puppet, and he's using a Crayola marker to create the lips. You can see in this picture some students use socks and yarn, some students use a paper bag, and you may see here that he's also using pencils or color pencils to create the body of the puppet, and he used computer paper just to make the face, and he's able to manipulate and move the puppet using the pencil. Actually, in this picture, you can see the student is recording the puppet show using his phone. So students are able to use whatever recording device they have, whether it's a phone, a tablet, a laptop, their school Chromebook, and they record the performance and they post it on our Flipgrid page. This student, she used the inspiration of Little Red Riding Hood, that story, and she changed the name of the characters and she made some adjustments in the story. She also made her video on the iMovie app. I walked the students on how to use the iMovie app and how to use the green screen effect to create the background of their puppet. So that is what she chose to do. The students also had the option of just drawing on construction paper, on computer paper, drawing the background, having it against the wall as they record their puppets. So they had that option. They could also find pictures online and print it out and hang it as the backdrop. So the students had a lot of options in how to create that, but this is what she used. And as you can see, her puppets, she had popsicle sticks or sticks, and she drew the faces and attached them to the stick. And that's how she's able to manipulate the puppets. Now, these are the categories that I graded the students on for their final puppet show performance. So I looked at puppet manipulation. Was I able to see the puppets at all times? I also graded on puppet construction. So did they actually put effort? Was it creative? Was it constructed well? And again, they were able to use any type of materials that they had at home. So each student's puppet looked very different, but did it look like they took the time to create it and put the effort? Was it well constructed? I also graded them mainly on playwriting. So was the plot creative? Did it follow the dramatic structure? Did they use choice of words? Did they make very specific choices to establish the character's personality through words? Could I identify the 6 parts of the story, the exposition, inciting incident, so on and so forth? I also graded them on scenery, so whether or not they used a virtual background or they drew a picture for the background or they found a picture online. Did the scenery, did the backdrop fit the setting of the play? Was it creative? I also graded them on voice projection. So can I hear them throughout the performance? I also graded them on expression. Did they show expression and emotion in their voice? Did they change the vocal qualities of their voice to match each character, or did they sound the same with every character? Did they sound as if they were just reading? And lastly, did they stay in character throughout the entire performance? Did they commit? Now, my second project number 2, this is also one of my favorite projects to work on for the students because it allows them to explore characterization in their voice. The students created their own radio theater performance using music and sound effects. They first had to write at least 2-page script that followed one that fit in one of these genres: sci-fi, comedy, mystery, romance, western. I allow them to adapt stories or movies that they've already seen and make it their own. But essentially, the scenes only needed 2 characters with very different qualities to their voice and very different personalities. Reason being, each student would have to play all the characters in their radio drama, and I didn't want them to face the challenge of playing 4 or 5 different characters and having to switch up their voices. So I required them to just have no more than 2. They would adjust the pitch, inflection, the rate of their speech, accent, maybe have a dialect, the tone in their voice to fit each of these characters. Their scenes had to have a clear beginning, middle, and an end, and they were also allowed to use sound effects and music to enhance the mood and to tell the story. The students were graded on the use of articulation, voice expression, projection, how well they created the 2 distinct characters, also their use of sound effects and music in telling the story. So as you can see here, where the lines are clear and audible and understandable, the students have great dramatic voice expression in each of the lines as they delivered them. Again, could I hear them very well? Do they project? Had good volume, outstanding volume. Did the voices fit the characters extremely well? Could I tell the characters apart based on the adjustments that the students made to their own vocal quality in terms of pitch and inflection and rate of speech? Also, did they use sound effects and music, and did it enhance the mood of the story? As well as rate, did it feel like they rushed through reading the script, or did it follow a natural performance pace? Another project that I also enjoy working on with my students, and this one, it's more for your advanced students that have a lot of experience with technology and editing and making videos. So the students wrote original screenplays. They wrote, they directed, they performed, and filmed and edited their own screenplays. We started off just writing. So we had a brainstorming day where we listened to different types of music, and then they had to have a free write activity where they just wrote the first thing that came to mind, what they visualized, what emotions came to mind or they felt as they were listening to this piece of music. Were there any particular memories or stories that came to mind as they were listening to the music? Also, I shared with them different pictures, different artwork. And again, they had a free write response based on what they saw. We also talked about different fairy tales. So I gave them a list of fairy tales and they had to pick one, and they were able to either give the story an alternate ending. They had an opportunity to tell the story from one of the other characters' points of view. Or they could modernize it, use the characters from the fairy tale, but instead of it being animals, they could make it people. So those were some of the free write exercises that I had the students do just to garner some ideas for their own screenplay. Then we began to narrow things down. They picked one of the stories that really spoke to them from the free write exercise, and then we started to do more character work. So they would pick a plot from the free write, then we started to focus on characters. What 2 or 3 main characters from each story that we'd want to write about or let be a part of our script? Because again, I didn't want them to have too many characters in their screenplay because they were going to be the one that would have to act out all of these characters. So we start to look at the characters in our stories. We had to figure out a distinct personality, how they move, how they spoke, and also find pictures of individuals online that we think best fit these characters in our stories. Then we began to break down our story based on the dramatic structure. So what would be the exposition? What would be the inciting incident? What events would be a part of the rising action that lead up to the climax? So I had them sort of break down their plot, their storyline based on the dramatic structure. And then I had them begin to write the dialogue for the script. I did this because I wanted them to be very clear on the distinct personalities of each character in the story, and I wanted to make sure that their stories had a clear beginning, middle, and an end. Sometimes students tend to start at the most dramatic moment and then it goes nowhere, or they end at the climax and there is no resolution. So I want them to really think about the 6 parts of the dramatic structure and how does their story fit within that. And I also want them to really, really think about each character, how each character is very different, and how these characters were different in not just their personality, but in the way they spoke and moved. They then had to storyboard their play. So we talked about angles and we talked about different types of shots. We also talked about some of the differences between acting for film and acting for camera, and how a story is communicated through staging on stage, and how we use different shots and different angles, and also music to enhance a story in a screenplay versus on stage. Then they would film, they recorded their scenes at home, and we spent class time to edit their clips using any type of editing app. I am most experienced using iMovie app. I've learned about KineMaster and several other editing apps. In fact, this was an awesome project for my students, my more advanced students, because it was a learning opportunity for me, because a lot of them, they're using TikToks and several different apps and tools out there to create videos online. So I was able to learn from them as well. And then they posted their final project on Flipgrid.com. Now, the last project that I enjoy very much working on with my students is a class production. So this can be done as a one-act play that you may select for your students, and you cast the play, they audition, you cast it. This can be done as an end of the semester showcase where they're working on short scenes, short duet scenes, and then they present them at this showcase at the end of the semester. Or it can be done as monologues or a combination of monologues, scenes, and songs. I recently worked on a one-act play with my class, The Insanity of Mary Gerard. I had my students audition, so we did a monologue unit. So for this particular production, they had to pick a monologue, memorize it, and present it at the audition. And this was just to give them an experience of how to practically use a monologue, and also give them a little bit of experience of what it's like to audition for a play. So here are just pictures of our rehearsal process and our final performance. I invited family and friends to their evening performance. I also had students that worked as stage managers and costume designers and lighting designers for the show. Students who were more interested in working on the technical aspects of the performance, they performed those particular roles. Lighting designer, they would go through the script, they would pick the types of lighting. And again, this was done in a classroom. We had a stage in our classroom, so we didn't necessarily have all the different lighting equipment, but we did talk about the use of color to set mood for the play, so they were able to pick different colors that they think would fit with certain moods of the play. Also, I had a student who was in charge of costumes, so picking the costumes from our storage area and fitting the costumes and making any small adjustments for each of the actors. So here actually at the bottom, this is a evening showcase that I had with my students, that they presented series of monologues and scenes that they worked on in class. And I also invited family and friends or teachers, community members to come and watch. You may also have, for this particular project, you may have a student director that is in charge of casting your production, but especially for your younger students, I decided to take the lead and be the main director and have my students work as my designers. I created a survey and I asked several teachers what are their favorite end of the year or end of semester projects. And here are some responses from a few of the teachers. Some teachers enjoyed working on a miniature set design project. Some of them enjoyed working on script writing. This could be a whole group, whole class project where the students write a one-act play. They may also write short scenes. Also, You may have each group is in charge of writing a different scene. We put it all together as a one-act play. Some of the teachers also enjoyed creating podcasts with their students. So the students retell their favorite stories and they used music and sound effects. This is very much similar to the radio drama, but instead, that particular assignment, the students were playing to multiple characters. One teacher enjoyed working on creating welcome videos for the new sixth graders, and this might be a project that I will work on with my students next time. I think it's an excellent recruitment tool for your program to get sixth graders to know about what your program is about and what to look forward to, and also as an opportunity for them to hear from students who have already taken your class. You may also have the students recreate intros to 90s sitcoms as the end of semester project, or you may also have them work on creating music videos in groups. Now, you can find the resources for any of the 4 projects that I just mentioned under the middle school theater page in the Godot community. I will post these under the document section. So lesson plans, the rubrics that I mentioned, and some of the activities that I mentioned for each of these projects. I will post the documents for them, again, under the document section of the middle school theater page in the Godot community. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you can receive any type of notification regarding any post that is made under the middle school theater group. If you have any questions, any comments, or ideas, please feel free to reach out to me using the Godot Community Middle School Theater Discussion Board. I would love to hear what projects that you are working on with your students. What are some of the projects that your students enjoy the most that they're still talking about and that you also enjoy teaching and working on with your students? Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Again, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.